Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Packers dominated the Saints on Monday Night Football. Also, the Celtics lost to the Magic on Tuesday night in a potential Eastern Conference Finals preview. And is college eligibility getting out of hand? Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The Green Bay Packers put together the first shutout of the 2024 NFL season, a 34-0 win over Spencer Rattler and the New Orleans Saints. It was a performance that didn't need to be as good as it was. I broke it down live on Locked On Packers on YouTube after the game. The Packers didn't have to do that. They didn't have to. They did not have to go out and physically dominate this New Orleans Saints team in every aspect. They did not have to go for it multiple times on fourth down. They did not have to kick a 58-yard field goal just for funsies. They did not have to pull every unique look out for the first couple drives. I mean, that first drive, the Packers ran half a dozen plays we haven't seen this year. And it's not that they were like crazy misdirection trick plays. It wasn't the stumble and fumble, Lions. They're gonna pretend to fumble the ball to run Wylie back because the Packers did that against the Bears. It wasn't that. But it was stuff that they hadn't shown before. Interesting stuff, unique stuff, unscouted stuff against a team that they didn't need that stuff to beat them. But it was hey, look at what we can do. Look at what we are capable of. And reckon with us in the NFC. It was, as Patrick Beverly would say, and earmuffs if you're listening with your children, it was a belt to ass game. That's what it was. It was we are better than you. We know we are better than you. We're not going to play with our food. We are just going to absolutely pound you into submission. A true four-quarter game. The Packers in this one, 404 yards. The Saints, 196. What else needs to be said? The Packers had more players run the ball in this game than they have had in a game in 70 years. And on defense, they get the first shutout of the 2024 NFL season. It's almost January. It's almost 2025. And a team had not been shut because this happens. Garbage time, whatever. Stuff happens in the fourth quarter. It didn't in this game. And before anyone goes, well, Spencer Rattler, no Chris Olave, no Alvin Kamara. The Commanders, who just beat the Eagles on Sunday, let Spencer Rattler almost beat them last week. If a tight end holds on to a pass that hits him in the chest last week, the Commanders lose, and it has huge playoff implications for the Packers. Now, the Packers have clinched the playoffs. They are going to the playoffs. Their seed is still TBD. But how do you look around the NFL? The Vikings, they barely win in Seattle. I know what their record says, but Seattle really, they had that game and they gave it away. The Lions defense is in shambles. I don't think the Packers are afraid to go beat that team. And then the Eagles, Jalen Hurts probably going to be back this week. But that defense looked extremely mortal against a rookie quarterback on Sunday. Why not the Packers has to be where this team is right now. Why not them? And to go out and have a performance like this, we saw Aaron Rodgers teams do this. This game reminded me of 2014. That team, that season, against an inferior opponent, they would just bury you. And I think, to a lesser degree in a lot of ways, 2020, where they were just going to kick your ass for the fun of it, for the sake of doing it. And that's what the Lions do. You're really the only other team in the NFL that does it. And this Packers team, I understand all the injuries, all that stuff. I get it. But be honest. You saw, you heard, you read Packers fans this week worry about the trap game. I posted a preview clip where I said, look, this is not a nuanced thing. This is a basically show up, match the intensity, and you'll win. And a lot of people going, trap game, the Saints are going to win, whatever. A lot of emotional hedges. I get that part of it. But that's, obviously not what happened, but it was never what was supposed to happen. The Packers were 2 touchdowns favorite in this game. And rightfully so, clearly rightfully so. But to take care of business like this, that is what championship teams do. That is what true NFC contenders do. And not every team would do it. In fact, we saw the Bills. We talked about this yesterday. The Bills had an opportunity against a bad Patriots team to just beat the crap out of them. They didn't. The Chiefs against a bad Panthers team. Okay, Panthers team playing better. Had the chance to show, hey, look, we're the favorites for a reason. We're just going to beat the crap out of this Panther. And they didn't do it. We see it every week. So don't downplay this like this is nothing. This was the signature domination, really, of the Packers Jordan Love era. You could say that the Vikings game last year, that was a game they needed more than they needed this one, though this was to clinch. They needed that game to stay alive in the postseason, but there were no expectations on that team. The stakes are different. When no one expects anything of you, the stakes are different than when you go into a game 2 touchdown favorites and you got to win this game to keep pace in the NFC because the Vikings keep winning improbably and the Commanders won somewhat improbably. And, you're not worried about what's happening in the the NFC South or the NFC West because you can't do anything about that. And so you just have to keep winning. The Packers could have won this game 34-30. They could have won this game 17-14. They could have won this game 24-21. All they needed to do was win. It's the old baseball. Sometimes you just need to blow somebody out 1-0. Except the Packers blew them out 10-0. You can stay up to date all year on the Green Bay Packers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Packers on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, there was a potential playoff preview in the NFL. Before we get to that, the Hawks came from behind to beat the Timberwolves. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. The Hawks were trailing in the fourth quarter against the Timberwolves before Trae Young and a career night from Garrison Matthews led to a comeback.
And they snapped. They lose a streak in the process. They had lost 3 games in a row. And with this win, they're back to 500 on the season, 15-15 through 30 games. A nice, round, comfortable number going into the Christmas mini break here with 2 days off. The Hawks were actually up by 19 points in the first half and then let it all slip away. Trailed at times in the second half of this game, but then they stayed engaged, showed a lot of resilience, I thought, in this one. And then honestly had a fantastic fourth quarter to kind of blow things open. They were in control to the point where they actually won this game fairly comfortably, and they actually were able to pull the starters in the last couple minutes of this game. So it was a very impressive performance, especially when factoring in they weren't even at full strength. Trae Young was questionable coming in. He ended up playing after missing the game on Saturday, but Bogdanovic did not play in this game due to a left lower leg contusion. And Minnesota was at full strength, basically, with the rotation. And the Hawks were 3.5-point underdogs at home, according to our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook.
The Miami Heat put a beat down on the Brooklyn Nets to end their 3-game losing streak.
And here's what stood out to me. Bam Adebayo. Because with Jimmy Butler out, somebody needed to be that consistent source of offense to get to the line, make tough shots. That's what he did. And he did a great Jimmy Butler impression. He had 5 assists in his opening stint in the first quarter, had 9 points in the third quarter to help Miami pull away, then iced the game with 8 points in the fourth. They needed somebody to play like a star, and that's what Bam did in this one. And I found that he did that on a night where Jimmy Butler was out. Very interesting. It was it didn't feel like a loud night for Bam Adebayo, but it was just sort of this steady drumbeat of important contributions. And he finishes the game with 23 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Again, it's not going to jump off the page, but he got to the line 8 times. Like I said, it was an impression of Jimmy Butler, not on a great Jimmy Butler night, but on like an above average Jimmy Butler night. And I think that's a good thing for Miami.
Tuesday gave us some insight into the hierarchy as it stands right now in the NBA playoff picture. Still plenty of time to go.
Later on, we'll talk about Al Horford's last shot attempt. I've seen some kind of consternation about that. I saw it on the post-game show. People were kind of like, why did you take that 3-pointer with 35 seconds left when all you needed was a 2? I'll explain why that's actually good game management given the situation. You got to do certain things. It may not seem like that's the right move, but that was, I believe, the right move. We'll talk about that later on. But let's just start with the physicality in this game. After the game, Joe Mazzulla mentioned physical or physicality 9 times. Jaylen Brown in his post-game interview said it, I think, 11 times. There were a lot of opportunities for the Celtics to mention how physical this game was going to be, and they took them. And so, okay, it was a very physical game. The way I put it on Boston Sports Journal was the Celtics didn't just get a lump of coal in their stockings. The Magic took that stocking down and beat them over the head with it like Colonel Jessup was ordering a code red. The Celtics, I think, didn't match the Orlando physicality. They didn't match that type of play. I think they got a little caught up in the officiating stuff, which, okay, I get it. People love to complain about the officials. I'm not going to do that. This was the type of game where I think if you're on the floor, you shouldn't be expecting a call. I don't care if you're Jaylen Brown. I don't care who you are. The way the refs were calling this game, no one should have expected a foul call on any play, no matter what happened. No matter if, Cole Anthony took out a surgical 2x4 and started walloping Al Horford over the head with it. It doesn't matter. You do not expect a foul call. But I think after the game, Jaylen was like, yeah, they were allowed to be physical. And I was expecting certain things. He was in classic Jaylen Brown fashion saying, I'm not going to complain about something, but then complaining about something. And, I'm not making any excuses, but here are my excuses. And I don't see it as necessarily an excuse. He wanted certain foul calls. And I'm sure you are thinking yeah, of course he wanted the foul call because he got fouled. But the refs had been allowing a ton of contact. And they, I think, were pretty consistent in what they allowed and didn't allow. It's not like they were calling a bunch of touch fouls. And the Celtics got 27 free throws. Now, 14 of those were Kristaps Porzingis, and Jalen probably wants more than 6 free throw attempts. But I'm okay with the calls not being called because it was kind of the way the game was going. If you're a player, you have to realize this is the game, right? I once had a coach tell me, on the first possession of the game, you need to run down and just slam into, like, if you're going to post up, I was a big, right? So you run down the court and the guy's waiting for you. Just go down there and slam into him and see if you're going to get that call and see if they're going to make that call. If they call it, then don't do it. You can't be physical in this game. If they don't call it, you're going to have an opportunity to just go knock some heads and you get to play some physical basketball. This was a game where it was all allowed and no one should have been surprised by anything. And you've just got to finish. I can't tell you how many times we sit here and hear the phrase, you got to let the players decide the game. And this is what it was. You got to let the players decide the game. And this is what the Celtics were given the opportunity. Players decide the game. All right, go decide the game then. Make your shots. Make your shots. The Celtics did not make their shots. They were 8 of 32 from 3. They are struggling from 3 now. They are middle of the pack when it comes to three-point shooting after this game, shooting 36.3%, I believe. Yeah, they're 16th in the NBA, 36.3%. Over their last 5 games, just under 33% from 3. Bottom of the league. 36.3 is right around league average. The Celtics, and this is one of the downsides to being a three-point team, they are susceptible to cold shooting. And in this one, you got 1 of 7 from Jaylen Brown from 3. Al Horford, 1 of 5. Kristaps Porzingis, 0 of 4. Peyton Pritchard, 1 of 5. Peyton Pritchard was not effective in this game. And I think the third quarter showed a lot of why he wasn't effective. I think he got caught up in a lot of the same stuff that the rest of the team got caught up in. But also, this is another big, strong physical team that Pritchard is not exactly the most well-equipped to deal with. Like, I don't want to rain on the Peyton Pritchard parade because he's had an incredible season. This is the type of game, this is the type of team that's going to give him, some problems here or there. And this was one of the games where he got some problems. In fact, the Celtics bench, completely nothing from the Celtics bench. Luke Cornett, 4 points, 5 rebounds. I mean, he made a couple of plays, but how many times did a ball go off of Luke Cornett's hands? How many times did he not catch the alley-oop, not finish an alley-oop? It was physical. You got to finish through traffic a little bit, but that ball was hitting you in the hands, buddy. You got to finish that. He had a lot of passes just go off his hands. That, not the best Luke Cornett game. Pritchard didn't do anything. Sam Hauser didn't even get a shot. 0 for 0 in 16 and a half minutes. Meanwhile, the Orlando bench puts up 40-plus points. They put up 41. So the Boston bench gave them 11. They were outscored by 30. Cole Anthony, Wendell Carter Jr., Anthony Black, Jonathan Isaac. That's you can't get outscored by that group. You can't.
You can stay up to date all year on the NBA by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today, Locked On NBA, and, of course, all your favorite local teams podcasts on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, are we inching toward limitless eligibility? Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. You can go ahead and take a look at the second round of the college football playoff, despite having already beaten Ohio State, Oregon, 2.5-point underdogs against the Buckeyes in the Rose Bowl. Penn State heads into the Fiesta Bowl favored by 10.5 over Heisman Trophy runner-up Aston Genty and the Boise State Broncos. Both teams are a combined 10-0 in the Fiesta Bowl. And despite the larger line, this should be a good one. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. The Vanderbilt Commodores rarely make waves across college football, but quarterback Diego Pavia sued the NCAA for more eligibility. Because of this ruling, college football players that played in junior college can now earn extra time.
Well, I mean, I was totally shocked. I mean, it seemed like it came out of left field because they didn't really set a timetable. So it's just kind of like, okay, maybe it'll come, maybe it'll come, maybe it'll come. And then it didn't come. So everything just kind of relaxed. Like, okay, I guess we're not going to hear anytime soon. And then boom, the news pops in. But, I was along the lines with you. I thought it was a long shot. But then I heard Clark Lea's press conference and the day before, like 2 days ago, when he was talking in his bowl game, somebody asked him about the case and he was very cagey about it. And he almost like let out this big grin, like he knew something was going on. And that raised some eyebrows because I've never seen Clark Lee like that when he's talking to the press. It's almost like he almost let it slip that Diego Pavia was coming back. So that I was like, okay, we're going to hear something very, very soon. They're not being super aggressive in pursuing quarterbacks. So something has to be happening positively for Diego Pavia. And lo and behold, here we go. And here we are. Diego Pavia releases a tweet that says, Vandy, we effing turned.
This has gotten out of control. And in some ways, there is righting of some wrongs that previously existed. Some of the junior college transfer stuff never really made sense. But we're seeing guys now play 6, 7, 8 years. And as name, image, and likeness expands, as college football becomes closer to NFL football, or at least professional football, the transfer portal, like free agency, there has to be a line at which it becomes merely extended amateur pro sports, where you're not playing in the NFL, but you're not really in college anymore either. You're 27, 28 years old, still playing college football because, by the way, you can still get paid by the rules. And you're not good enough to go to the NFL and make real starting quarterback money, for example. But you can make some nice money in college football. And if you stop playing college football, ain't no money out there for you. There has to be a limit. And maybe the NCAA doesn't want there to be. Maybe they like having the setup the way that it is because it keeps these big name players that that you've seen because they've been playing college football for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Maybe they want that. I don't. And finally, on the Pat McAfee show, New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers joked about being released by a teenager this offseason. And that was one of the least ridiculous things he's ever said in front of a microphone. Unbelievable stuff. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, will the second round of the college football playoff be more competitive than the first? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.